Hi everyone, welcome back to channel that shares knowledge on comprehensive personal development through good books. Today, I would like to share with you a book that many of you have sent messages asking the channel to introduce. The book The Courage to be Hated by authors Kashimi Ichiro and Koga Fumitake. If the price of freedom is to be hated by others, do you want to be free? When mentioning Dare to be Disliked, perhaps many people think that this is a self-help book. However, in reality, it is a book that on the surface seems to be soothing to the soul, but inside it contains an enlightening philosophical discourse. The arguments within are like a powerful medicine to help you see through your inner self. This entire book is written in the form of a dialogue between a young man and a philosopher, reminiscent of the dialogue between Socrates and Plato. This form, though it makes readers feel more approachable and easier to empathize with, means that knowledge is spread and interspersed, so if you only read it once, it will be very difficult to condense and have a comprehensive view of the problem. Perhaps, when you touch a few words of the philosopher, you will feel enlightened about something, for example, that you must learn to love yourself, have faith, and affirm yourself, and so on. But then, it will quickly pass when you put the book down, and it's hard to apply it in practice. Perhaps, that is why many people consider it to be just a self-help book. So, today, Better Version will reread this book with you, sharing with you the most essential and core things, hoping that it will help you have a more profound insight into the complex inner self, and understand what true freedom and happiness really are. The first thing to do in order to bring the most effective reading is to recommend that you read it at least twice. The first time, you can focus on some of the viewpoints presented in each chapter and discover some special points. Then when you read it again for the second time, because you already know the contents, when you read the previous chapters again, you will easily feel the entire book is self-contained, coherent, and full. All the small viewpoints are connected with each other, and you cannot help but admire the author. You will discover that the entire central idea of this book is perhaps what was said right at the beginning. The world is extremely simple, and people can achieve happiness at any time. The author has used 4 main ideas from the whole book to prove this central point. Now, let's explore these 4 big ideas together, to see what kind of courage to dare to be disliked we must have in order to have freedom, and what we must do to be able to have complete happiness at any time. Change your perspective, from causal theory to teleology to face suffering. I believe that when you come into contact with psychology, more or less, you will have heard the name Freud, one of the 3 great psychologists. Freud once proposed the theory of psychological trauma. This is a typical causal theory, that is, if we want to understand the cause of our own behavior, we have to go back to the past. But if you focus blindly on the causes in the past and try to explain everything only by cause, you will likely fall into an endless loop. In the book, there is a story about a man who was abused by his parents in his childhood, and as a result, he had always stayed home for many years. Every time he stepped outside, he was extremely scared, felt his heart beating fast, and his hands and feet shaking. This prevented him from living like a normal person. But he still wanted to go out, to work and create things useful for society. The psychological trauma in his past prevented his present life. Here, if we understand according to Freud's point of view, before every result, there is a cause. The I of the present is the result created by the causes, a series of events in the past which have determined this outcome. Wouldn't there be a contradiction in the above example? If all those who had been traumatized by parental abuse in the past did not end up with psychological trauma, would that be abnormal and illogical? To resolve this contradiction, this book is based on Adler's theory of teleology. No matter what happened in the past, it does not affect your life in the days that follow. What determines your life is the moment you are living in the present, and the purpose behind your actions, not the cause in the past. It's also like if you recognize that you often procrastinate and avoid difficulties, then that action is chosen by you with the purpose of temporarily avoiding stress, fear of failure. If you notice that you are angry, scolding your loved ones, then it means you chose it with the purpose of making the other person surrender and admit their mistake to you. If you realize that you are avoiding society, closing your heart, and isolating yourself from the outside world, not liking to meet other people, not liking to communicate, then it is you who chooses to do so in the present, with the purpose of reducing feelings of insecurity and anxiety. If you recognize the purpose behind each action in the present, you will truly understand what your deepest fear is right now, or what your big ego is urging you to do. In other words, understanding the purpose behind each action is the key to changing the status of your life. If we continue to rely on causes, we will never be able to move one step further. Adler said that what determines who we are is not our past experiences, but the meanings that we attach to those experiences. Pay attention to this. It does not mean denying that painful or unhappy events from childhood have no impact on our personality formation. On the contrary, the impact will be very great. But the problem is that experience alone does not decide anything. The meaning that we attach to our experiences in the past is what directly decides our life. Life is not given by others, but is chosen by us. The way you live is up to you. No one can choose your origin. Where you were born, what era you live in, and what kind of parents you have, is not your own choice. Moreover, these things have a great influence. If you keep trying to analyze the causes, from there you may feel dissatisfied, or feel inferior and blame what happened. If you want to change yourself, we should not stop there. Let's start from the present, instead of going against the stream back to the past. By looking with the teleological perspective, you will understand that your actions when interacting with others, including your pain and negative emotions, are all decided by you right here and now. It depends on you, and it has nothing to do with the past or anyone else. Your next action is to take responsibility for yourself. Will you continue to look back at what happened, or focus on understanding and loving yourself more? As Adler said, understanding yourself is the first step towards change. In short, in the first section, let's remember that no matter what happened in the past, the meaning we attach to it determines the state of the present. No matter what happened in our life before now, it will not affect your life from now on. Remember that, in the present, whether you choose suffering or happiness depends on your purpose and choices right now. Realize and fulfill your task, your life will become simpler. So from now on, having been able to face suffering with the present self, how can we escape those sufferings, misfortunes, and worries? In life, the young man in the book was still immersed in disappointment with a chaotic life, carrying the question how to end suffering. He again went to find the philosopher. The philosopher told the young man a profound philosophy: the source of suffering comes from relationships. This point of view comes from Adler's philosophy. He believed that because humans cannot live alone in the world, it is necessary to choose a life goal that is suitable for this condition, that is, trying to build harmonious relationships with others. If we base it on the stages of life and the depth of relationships between individuals to divide, then each person's life includes three major issues: work, friendship, and love. The reason you always encounter a lot of suffering and hurt in these relationships is that you haven't clearly distinguished the boundaries. In life, either you are always being interfered with by others, or you are trying to interfere with others. This interference is breaking those boundaries. But what are the boundaries here? Why are they so important in relationships? I will use a personal perspective from the perspective of the universe to show you the secret to becoming happier in relationships. It lies in distinguishing and protecting these boundaries. Have you ever heard the phrase Roche limit? In fact, the universe always teaches you how to love and how to build harmonious relationships with others. The Roche limit is only the closest distance that two celestial bodies can have. If that distance is exceeded, the smaller celestial body will be shattered. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is approximately 384,400 kilometers. If the Moon exceeds the Roche limit, it will be broken into hundreds of pieces. We often see that in most relationships, especially in love, pain and hurt most often occur in people who sacrifice themselves to please their partner, or those who easily criticize and control the other person. The end result for these people is often that they exhaust themselves to the extreme, or they lose their own identity and motivation in life. If you are having trouble and suffering in love, friendship, family, or other relationships, it means that the universe is sending that person into your life and telling you that it is time for you to learn to love yourself. So, how can you love yourself? That is, you always need to keep a distance and not cross the line in relationships. This is also what the philosopher told the young man: recognize and fulfill your task, your life will become simple. From now on, your task here is to focus on yourself, love yourself, and not try to interfere in the tasks of others, because everything that comes from the outside, including other people, is beyond your control. Insisting on changing or interfering with their duties will only make you feel miserable. If your mother-in-law nags you, that is her task. Your lover treats you coldly, that is his task. Your friends don't like you, that's their task. Your job is to shift your focus and focus on developing yourself. Don't let emotions cross the line between two people. You know what? One of the most precious sayings in this life is "I have the right to choose." You have the right to choose to distance yourself when you are in pain. Do not get too close. Do not break the boundaries. When you let go, without interference, everything will happen naturally in harmony and happiness. You will then see the Taoist principle of Wu Wei is so true. Those who give up control of their lives are the ones who become the masters of their own destiny. By now, maybe you think that ignoring others like that is too selfish, or not. People often think that not caring too much, not interfering in the affairs of your loved ones, not meeting the expectations of others is selfish. Because it is selfish, you will be hated. Therefore, this book has the title Dare to be Disliked. But I must say to you that this hate is very difficult to happen. Because if everyone in the relationship knows how to respect boundaries with others, and to love themselves, when you know how to fill yourself with love, your life will automatically attract more love. So, just be brave, dare to be hated. Then, the philosopher will show us 3 specific ways to separate the boundaries and recognize our duties, from which we can achieve harmonious relationships. First, let go of competition. There's a saying that where there is comparison, there will be suffering. Much of the pain in this young man's life comes from comparing himself to others. From a young age, the young man was compared to his brother by his parents, so he always thought he was a loser. But you need to know that the more you don't have something, the harder it is to let go of it. When people grow up, it is very difficult to escape the awareness of comparing wins and losses, because the spirit of competition has been deeply rooted in our traditional culture. Many children have been required to become group leaders or class monitors since they were young. What we hear and see in this society makes us believe that a sense of competition is inevitable. Without competition, humans cannot progress. But the philosopher gives an opposite view. The world does not need competition, and individuals do not necessarily have to be in a position to distinguish between winners and losers. The harm of competitive consciousness is that when there is competition, there will be victory and defeat, and once there are winners and losers, there will inevitably be you and your enemy. The hostility that arises will give rise to new hostility. People living in this consciousness will only be worried and insecure about what they gain and lose. At that time, happiness will only be like the moon in the water. The more you want to pick it up, the faster it will break. In fact, you can choose another path, which is to let go of competition. When you see others progress, you do not need to think about your weaknesses, but sincerely be happy for them. When debating about someone, you have the right to believe that your point of view is correct, but at the same time you can still acknowledge that other people's views are also reasonable. Only when you let go of the desire to compete will you not be interfered with by others and will not interfere in the tasks of others. Only when you are not burned by the fire of comparison will your eyes become clear and your ears be quiet. You will no longer torment yourself, and also won't chase after a meaningless victory. Secondly, you need to know how to refuse manipulation and control. People who cannot distinguish their tasks from those of others will pay special attention to the opinions of others. Just like this young man in the story, he always tried to meet the expectations of his parents and leaders. In fact, putting too much attention and approval of others on ourselves is essentially trying to use our own behavior to control the opinions of others, wanting to be paid more attention to by others. This is also a type of manipulation, but in reality this type of manipulation cannot be done and will create a great burden for ourselves. We often see the restriction in the name of love between husband and wife, for example, like if you love me, you won't do that, I've tried so hard, why don't you truly love me? These kinds of interventions are actually because you lack trust and want to restrict the other person's actions, ultimately leading to tension in the relationship, exacerbating the gap, and even leading to separation and ending the relationship. In the parent-child relationship, we need to be wary of the mindset of repayment. It is simply taking the sacrifice of oneself as a reason to demand from the other party without respecting the other person's real wishes. For example, parents often tell their children that mom and dad work so hard for you to study, so why don't you listen to us? These kinds of thoughts, interfering with others, or being interfered by others, will become a shackle in the relationships between individuals. Another reason that makes us always interfere in the tasks of others is believing that I am superior to others. I have had the experience, so you should listen to me. All the paths you take, your parents have gone through. Don't disobey your parents. Why can't you do such simple things, and so on. Criticism, control, or not having your own opinion, revealing weakness and self-pity, are all signs that you are in an unequal relationship. Adler believed that inequality often occurs because society has a tendency to maintain vertical relationships, that is, a relationship that looks from top to bottom. This tendency arises from reward and punishment-based education. If children do well and meet the expectations of their parents and teachers, they will be rewarded. Although to a certain extent this method of education can play a positive role in adjusting children's behavior, in essence it is an invisible control over children when they are in a weak position, while adults will be in a position of domination. Praising is to make children continue to do as they wish, and punishing is also to discipline and mold children to follow your wishes. When this relationship takes place and becomes the norm, children will obediently change their behavior in order to gain recognition and rewards. When they grow up, children will continue to live a life of serving others instead of doing what they want with their hearts. A person living in a vertical relationship will tend to use it as a measuring stick in every relationship. When they meet someone stronger, they will feel inferior, and when they meet someone weaker, they will begin to interfere with them with an attitude of being superior. In the classic book that I once introduced, What is the Meaning of Life?, discussing the inferiority and superiority complex by Adler, he said that there are two types of inferiority complexes, healthy and unhealthy. With a healthy inferiority complex, people will work harder to improve themselves. But when people begin to fall into a state of comparing themselves with others, they will form a harmful inferiority complex, and use that inferiority complex as an excuse to retreat from difficulties and maintain the state of inferiority. Therefore, they are not willing to step out of their comfort zone to change themselves. That's why Adler advises us to turn the vertical into horizontal relationships, that is, to take equality as the core. Specifically, how can we maintain a balance in relationships? If a vertical relationship starts with reward and punishment, then horizontal relationships will start with gratitude and encouragement. When satisfied with how others behave, replace compliments with a sincere thank you. When you disagree with something, replace blame with encouragement. So above are methods that help you separate your tasks from others. Finally, for today's video, I have a big question. After all, we know that we have to change ourselves, but how to get the courage to change? Where can that courage be found? The courage to change comes from a sense of community. Adler says that the relationship between individuals is the source of pain, but at the same time, it is also the source of happiness and courage. So, we must reach the final destination of building relationships in order to have the courage to change and have happiness at any time. The final destination of relationships is the feeling of community. The feeling of community simply means the feeling that when you consider everyone as a partner in an equal relationship, then you will have a sense of belonging. You turn your obsession with yourself into care for others. According to me, this is a feeling of giving, and then becoming one with others. The philosopher divides the process of building a sense of community into 3 interconnected steps. The first step is accepting yourself. It's very important to recognize and accept your imperfect self, and to have an incomplete life. Each of us is a unity of contradictions, the result of a reconciliation between different positive and negative qualities. Lacking any aspect, no one can be called complete. This is a classic saying in the book The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, love the dark side of yourself. And it's also true here. When you are ready to accept your whole self, you will be able to observe the purpose behind each of your actions, to distinguish what is within your control and what is beyond your control. And then, you no longer worry and interfere with the problems that inherently belong to others. You do not need to seek recognition for yourself from the outside world, but can only focus on your own heart. The second step is to trust others. Give unconditional trust to others, and treat each other as friends, as partners. Let go of the top-down view to build an equal relationship. And finally, it is contributing to others. This is considered a philosophy that all sages want you to aim for, as a mission in life, which is to be willing to give and to contribute. These three links are a seamless whole. Coming here, you might realize that the entire content of this book has a very tightly knit logical structure, to finally affirm to you one thing, that you can be happy at any time, and happiness is always a gift of the present moment. Living in this world, trying not to be hated by others is actually very simple, because you just need to be hypocritical, compromise and give up. However, it is difficult to follow your own path and maintain inner peace, even knowing that you will be hated. What Adler tells us is that we must have the courage to practice this lifestyle. So many people have chosen a life without freedom just because they don't want to be hated by anyone. Some people sacrifice their own principles to meet the expectations of others. Some people always suppress their emotions and avoid reality, and think that by doing this, they can be favored by life. But it is precisely this pursuit of recognition that kills one's own freedom. I hope that you have the courage that Adler called daring to be disliked. It is also the courage to help you be happy right now and at any time. Thank you for listening. If you found this video useful, please share it with those who need it. Don't forget to give me a like, click the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to watch my weekly videos. Once again, thank you, and see you in the next videos. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me and look forward to my next videos. Goodbye and see you soon.